There are some major free agency updates for the Toronto Blue Jays, and this offseason is just getting started. It's about to get very interesting, especially with some of the names that are already in-house. And we're talking about Guerrero and Bichette. It's going to get really interesting, and it's already starting to heat up. So we'll break that down and much more on this episode of Jays Digest. Welcome in, everybody, to Jays Digest. I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And Nick, this is going to be a very eventful offseason. At least that's what we think it will be, because there's a lot of things that need to happen for the Blue Jays. A lot of things need to fall into place. And even if they don't go out there and acquire some big names, there are some big names on the roster right now that need to either get extended or won't get extended or are going to test free agency. We still don't know how this whole thing is going to play out, but some very interesting storylines. And I mean, let's break it all down because it's a very long and extensive list.
Yeah, Shai Davids came out and gave kind of a general overview and update surrounding the Blue Jays. We'll also discuss another target that was linked to them because moves are going to start going down. But let's start with the big piece here. And there's a lot of things to go over. And this is from again, Shai Davids was on the MLB Network and he had a ton of things to say. We'll probably have other videos breaking them down more specifically, but I want to focus on a couple of things right now. So regarding the Juan Soto situation, it doesn't seem too likely that the Jays are going to go for him. But if they do, they have a secondary payroll for Juan Soto, which is very interesting. And they also speak out on the Bichette and Guerrero extensions, which we will have a video on more in depth in the future. But I want to dive into the part here where it says realistic options to get. And he says that Swanson is going to basically have another chance this season, given his circumstances last season. And the obvious areas, like Ben Smith is saying and every other reporter is saying, is corner outfield and second base. And third base is also an option, as well as DH. And they're very active in the starting pitching market more than expected. They're expected to add a starter and then move Yariel to the bullpen. And if they don't get Soto, they're looking to get one or two other bats, and their dream would be Anthony Santander. So a lot of stuff to go over here, and there's another report surrounding another player, which is very interesting, which we'll get to in a minute. What are your thoughts on this overall kind of view? It seems like, again, they're going to be going for Soto, and there's some other reports coming out over the past couple days. This one came out a couple days ago. So it seems like they do have alternate options in place, with Santander being their dream corner outfielder, and specifically looking for starting pitching and corner outfielders as their primary focus here. And they also expect Spencer Horwitz to get some more run next season as well.
I think Santander is a great option. And I know everyone wants Soto, and I want him as well. Don't get me wrong. But if we're looking at just pound for pound production, Santander had 40 something home runs last year, close to that number. So he's awesome, and he's exactly what the Blue Jays need. And the versatility, maybe not defensively, but switch hitter. This guy can hit at the top of your order. He can hit more so in the middle of your order. Like he is a bat sort of caliber that the Blue Jays need desperately. So I would not be angry if Santander was the headliner for the offseason for the Blue Jays. But what I do find interesting in all of those tidbits that you mentioned there, Nick, is that they would create a secondary payroll for Soto. So we've been hearing a lot about the Mets and the Yankees, and those are obviously the two destinations that we both expect to have the best chance at landing him. And the Blue Jays have been mentioned as a dark horse multiple times, whether it was by Bob Nightingale, who actually expects the Blue Jays to sign him, or whether it was
John Heyman.
Jeff Passan or John Heyman mentioning them as dark horses. Like, it's not a foregone conclusion that Soto's going to stay in New York, either with the Mets or the Yankees. But it's going to be an uphill battle for the Blue Jays. But I do find it interesting that they're going to spend the money and that they're going to be involved in that. Now, the only thing that you cannot do this time around is to not have a backup plan, which is clearly not the case according to Shai Davids here. The number one option is Anthony Santander by all accounts, and I'm good with that because that is an injection of life into this lineup that desperately needs it. And then we go down the list, and there are some other names that the Blue Jays could target if they get Santander. They'll maybe have some money to allocate elsewhere, whether that's in the rotation for like a max free type of player, or if they even want to go with a cheaper option, they could look at bringing Yusei Kikuchi back, or signing a guy on a 1 year flyer deal. Like, that's all entirely possible, but it's going to be a busy offseason, and I'm glad that the Blue Jays, at least from all the reports that we're hearing, have some contingency plans in place.
Yeah, and when this dropped, there's been some, since this report has dropped from Shai Davids, there's been some more reports lending credence to the fact that maybe the Jays are going more in on Juan Soto than we initially thought. But again, the important thing here is it doesn't expect Soto to sign with the Braves unless or with the Jays unless something breaks for them. But Rogers would create a secondary payroll, which is something that's very important because, again, they have their limit, but they would break that limit for Juan Soto. And talking about alternative options, Ben Smith dropped a report talking, you see the second paragraph here, if the Blue Jays don't add a corner outfielder, the most likely position they'll upgrade is second base, so it's worth noting that Ha-Seong Kim is expected to be fully recovered from shoulder surgery, and according to agent Scott Boras, and the Jays are expected to have interest in both Kim and Gleyber Torres as they survey their infield options. And again, we made a video on the Gleyber Torres situation, but Ha-Seong Kim is a very, very interesting player. And again, we know they're looking for guys like Max Fried. They're looking for guys in the infield, the outfield. But at this point, Ha-Seong Kim is a very interesting target, and I would like to see them get multiple. Like, I wouldn't hate an Anthony Santander and Ha-Seong Kim offseason, getting both of those guys and then shoring up your bullpen. I think they need to go for multiple good position players on the Blue Jays. And again, he's not the best hitter, but he is one of the best defenders in baseball. In 2023, he had a 4.8 wins above replacement, a lot of it due to his defense. But again, it would be a good second baseman to have on the team. I mean, he can also play some shortstop, of course, as well. But it would be very interesting to get Ha-Seong Kim on the team, given his defense and his elite contact skills.
Yeah. Yes. And he's not an elite hitter by any stretch, slightly above league average, I would say, or just around the league average mark. But if you take a look at his numbers from last season there, Nick, 17 home runs,
Yep.
38 stolen bases. That adds a different element to this Blue Jays team that they don't really have. I mean, all due respect to George Springer and to Dalton Varsho, they're not out and out base stealers. Whereas I wouldn't put Ha-Seong Kim in that category either, but I don't think Varsho or Springer combined would even get close to 38 stolen bases. So that adds a different element to the team, the power, speed, and defense combination that the Jays like a lot. And yeah, there's some swing and miss in his game. There's some lack of consistency from the offensive side of things. But like you mentioned, if you add Santander in the mix and maybe another bat, or maybe someone like Orelvis Martinez has a really strong offseason and he's able to come back and be that injection of power that you need in that lineup, then maybe you don't need Ha-Seong Kim to hit 30 home runs, and you don't need him to be an elite offensive player. You just need him to be a demon on the base pass, which he usually is. And I would like that. Ha-Seong Kim is steady. He's as steady as they come. You know what you're getting out of him, and with the down performance that he had this season, I can't suspect him being too expensive to the point where the Jays won't be able to address some other areas of need if they go out and get him.
Yeah, if they can't land Juan Soto and their backup plan is a guy like Santander or Ha-Seong Kim, it would be very interesting. What they can have happen is what happened last season, where they go for too many non-bat first players or guys who are in the tail end of their career, like Justin Turner was and is. So let us know down below what your thoughts are on that. A ton of updates are coming out. Moves are going to happen. Obviously, the bulk of the moves are most likely to happen around winter meetings, especially Juan Soto. So there's going to be a lot of interesting things until then. So make sure to hit the subscribe button. We'll see you guys later.